Доброе утро. Good morning. Today, I want to talk about those Ukrainians. You know who you are. So, back in the day, in the early 90s, I just moved to South Bend, and the boys were on vacation with their mother. I was married at the time, and only one son and I were home in South Bend. And I was working as a sous chef, a second job, and I got the call that the fire department had been called to my house. This was a spectacular Queen Anne home, very near Leaper Park, if you know the area around Notre Dame. A beautiful house. And so I, of course, my heart in my throat, I raced home and I saw all the fire trucks and all of that. And I saw my son, who was 13 at the time, sitting on the steps, so I knew he was okay. The dog had taken off somewhere in the panic. That's another story for another day. And I could still see the house standing, and so I thought, well, this isn't so bad then. And so I walked in, and I saw all the damage, and so all of the leaded glass windows had been axed in by the fire department. Water everywhere inside. And I said to the fire chief, who happened to be there, well, this isn't as bad as I thought. And he said, come with me. And so we went around the corner through the dining room and slid open the pocket door into the kitchen. And there I saw the night sky and the stars, because that whole side of the house where the fire had originated, that had pretty much lost its top. And I remember literally falling back into the arms of the fire chief, which I realize sounds like some weird perverted video, but it ends there. And I was horrified beyond words. That was a rough time. Insurance decided that the fire was my fault because when the adjuster came out, I said that I had moved the gas stove to clean behind it, and I did not replace the gas line, and the gas line was broken, and that was the cause of the fire. Anyway, they did eventually pay up, but that was a year and a half down the road. I was a member of a small Ukrainian parish at the time, and they wanted someone with some musical ability to teach them an English liturgy. They had been doing it all in Old Slavonic since the 11th century, and so I was that guy. And I am not Ukrainian, or I didn't think I was. Another story. And so I'm there and I'm helping them. And since I had come to them from the Melkite church, they sometimes jokingly referred to me as the Greek boy. I'm not Greek either. But anyway, Christmas is coming around. I'm working 2 jobs, as many hours as I can, because my boys don't have beds. we lost probably 75% of everything that we owned. And if you've never had a house fire, I don't recommend it. The smell of that smoke ruins grilled food for you for a long time, because there's something in the smell of charcoaled meat that is the same as what a burned house smells like. Christmas time comes around. The pastor of the parish, which is a small congregation of under 100 people, and I'm singing the Christmas Eve liturgy, which is a 3-hour extravaganza of chant, and he comes up to me after the whole thing is done, and he said, "I want to give you this from my family to yours." And inside the card was $275 in cash. Now, mind you, this was a married Byzantine priest with 4 or 5 kids of his own, struggling to make ends meet on maybe $15,000 a year. He had the church rectory and his car insurance paid, but that was about it. So he was not wealthy by any means. And I sat there in the church in front of the icon of the Theotokos, and I just cried, because I knew he was not a man of means. But at the same time, I was so grateful that I would have something to do with my boys. So it was decided then, between the boys and my wife and myself, that since we didn't have money for Christmas gifts, we were going to spend whatever money we had on the best damn Christmas dinner ever. And so I had, a huge chunk of prime rib, and I had ordered oysters, from the market, and big prawns. We were going to just do this upright. That was going to be our Christmas gift for each other and with each other. And now I had this $275. And so I came home from the church service that night, and I said to the boys, "Okay, here's what happened. What do we want to do with the money?" And I expected them to be typical teenagers and say Xbox, Game Boy, whatever the thing was back in that time period. And instead they said, in their most excited voices, "Can we get new coats and maybe boots?" Wow. I'll never forget that Christmas. And so that's what we did. I didn't have the money to waste on, nonsense, electronic stuff. And when the chips were down, my kids realized what they needed most that Christmas. It's one of my happiest Christmas memories, and I have a lot of them. In Philippians chapter 2, Paul says, "All of you ratchet-ass people need to get your heads on right. You need to stop looking after your own ass and start looking after somebody else's. And start thinking like Jesus thinks. Start thinking about other people and what they need before you think of yourself." In other words, let Christ do a little Christmas cleaning in your head so that you can be real. You can be the presence of Christ. That's what my pastor did that Christmas. And it has changed the way I look at Christmas giving. I know parents, especially people in recovery who maybe have been incarcerated and have missed a few Christmases because they were either locked up or, shit-faced somewhere. And maybe they were there physically, but they were out of their minds, high or intoxicated. And so they fall back on this fake Christmas ideal that they have to buy all kinds of stuff. I once knew a mother who finally got her son back after a lengthy DCS case, if that isn't redundant, and decided that she was going to have an Amazon package arrive every day for the month of December. Now, mind you, this is someone who is living in a pretty shady neighborhood with, no vehicle of her own to even get herself to work, but she's wasting all this money on unnecessary stuff for her kid. That is not love. That is not being a good mom or a good parent. It is undermining the very idea of generosity. We're in the midst of a pandemic. I have not gone Christmas shopping for one darn thing. I have not even gone grocery shopping in 7 months. Stuff comes here. So what do we do in a pandemic when we know that people are struggling? So here it is. If you know someone, take a page from my former pastor's playbook and reach out to them. Reach out to them. Give them a gift card. Give them a grocery gift card. Let them decide what their family needs. We are expected, Paul says, to do some housekeeping in our heads. Get our ego the heck out of the way and start putting on the mind of Jesus the Christ. For whatever reason, North Americans don't even think of helping the less fortunate until Thanksgiving rolls around. And then we're good for like 5 or 6 weeks. And then we're like, oh, it's New Year's. Thank God there aren't any more poor people around. The challenge I'd like all of us to think about today. Not only, not only can we help someone during the holiday season, but let's think of a way that we might be generous at the end of January as well as in December. Let's start to shake this up a little bit. Let's start to put on the mind of our brother Jesus and realize that the need is never going to go away. There will always be people around us, and sometimes we will know them personally. There will always be people who need a little taste of extravagant, amazing grace. And it is in our power to be exactly that. Pray with me. Mighty God, we stand before you this morning in this darkness before dawn, mindful that you have sent your Christ into our world and into our human situation to teach us how to be human, truly made in your image, truly bearing the image of your Christ. Help us to set aside our egos and our tendency to hoard your grace. Help us to open our eyes and ears and notice those in need. Inspire us to find new ways, invisible ways, of being your healing touch, your embrace of love, your touch of unconditional acceptance. For all of the times that you have stepped into our lives through the actions of others, we thank you. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Amen. Дякую і до побачення.